What's going on, everyone? Good morning. Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast, episode 322. It is another fine Sunday, and it's even made more fine by the fact that Travis is not here this week. So Hoeg and I have big smiles on our face because we've replaced him with someone far superior. Our good friend Mekel Kasanova is back, and I'm happy to actually be here this time when he guests so that we can chat because we talk offline. Mekel, I know it's very early for you this morning, my friend, but how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I got to get up and get my workout in. You know, I'm up every morning 4:30 at the gym at 5, and
There you go.
Same.
Can't complain.
There you go. Ready to go. And I will point out that we're starting for our live show. Our audio listeners, apologies, but our live show, we're starting on time. So you know who makes us late every week. You know what's going on there. The Hatless Lawman, Hatless Hoeg, as we like to call him, is here this morning. Good morning, my friend. How we doing?
I'm doing well. I'm excited about talking games with someone other than Travis. And that'll be my last knock on him for at least the next 10 minutes.
I was going to say, it won't be my last one. No promises there. So, yeah. Excellent.
I actually forgot. Mekel, was I the one in charge of that stream when you guested last time? Were you here for me messing around with buttons?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you were. In fact, one of our favorite shorts of all time where you hit the wrong button as Travis was making jokes about going off the rails. Yeah, one of the best endings, I think, in Bitcast history, to be honest with you, Hoeg.
Well, accidents make the best broadcast.
It's gonna be a good show. We got some good topics this week. You know, the year's starting to ramp up, and we've got another delay on Assassin's Creed Shadows, which we're going to touch on as part of a larger topic relating to Ubisoft's strategic update, as they called it, and what they're doing for their company, which Hoeg also talked about in more detail this week. So we'll be tackling that. We're also going to go through and update everyone on just where Ubisoft is in terms of their portfolio. So kind of went through and found out, made sure I had all the details updated on all the games that are currently in development. Whether or not that'll continue is TBD, of course. We'll talk through those. We're going to talk through a few more of the Switch 2 things that have come out, including a pretty, we don't like to talk about rumors often here, but this is a pretty solid one in the sense of, potentially Halo and Forza and some of the Xbox titles eventually heading over to the new Switch, the Super Switch. We'll get Mekel in on our bet, by the way, for the Super Switch price. And then we've got an announced Xbox Developer Direct we're going to touch on as well. Some exciting things there. So we will get into it. Before we do that, of course, we got to catch up on our usual. We got a few Super Chats. We got Tide's picks. So let's do that. Looks like I'm reading them this week, huh? All right. Googleman kicking us off. I cannot do the accent like Travis does, so I won't even attempt it. Googleman here with his 10 euros. Did you know you can disable voice chat in Marvel Rivals and that it makes close to zero difference because they'll still yell at you behaviorally?
I told you this game didn't work for me, and part of that is that it was a horrible experience from minute one. So I have no doubt that it doesn't make a difference at all whether or not you hear their voice or whether they're just angry at you with their gameplay.
Yeah, this doesn't surprise me. I wasn't a fan, so I'm not playing it. Obviously, a lot of people are playing it.
They are.
Very popular game right now.
More power to them. If you find something you enjoy, stick with it. I'm not here to tell you that it's lame or that you shouldn't be playing it if you like it. It's just not for me. Very clearly not.
Yeah.
100%. Mekel, you into this at all?
No. When I saw the genre, I'm like, oh, okay, no. And then what it's supposed to be similar to, and I'm like, no, I'm good.
Not your type of game.
It's not, because I don't really play a lot of multiplayer games outside of like Call of Duty or Halo or Street Fighter or something like that. Tekken maybe, Virtua Fighter or Revo when that comes out. But like,
sure,
that's it for me, because it's like trying to like deal with angry 15-year-olds in a game like that is just not appealing to me.
Fair enough.
Last time I tried it was Concord, so I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, I got constantly reamed by people. Hey, no. Anyway, about that game, because people were like, oh, you're paid to play it. I'm like, it was fun. I got it for free, but I don't know.
Hoeg and I were proponents of that game, and I don't often say that about Hoeg's opinion matching up with mine. We often disagree on things, but that's fine.
Well, as it turns out, I also got it for free, but that was after the fact.
Oh man, Googleman, thank you. And yeah, Marvel Rivals I think broke 30 million players, right? Like total players that have played the game this week.
It's huge.
So
they just started season 1 or whatever they're naming their seasons. It's obviously a gigantic success for them. Huge concurrent users on Steam. More power to you. It's just not for me. Popped in, didn't like it. I will not pop in again.
Fair enough. Googleman, thank you as always, my friend, for kicking us off. We got Vintage Willow's back. Good morning, Willow. And thank you for your generosity as always on the SG side of the house. Really appreciate you. Hope you're doing well. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you, Vintage.
Always. Mr. Don Lionheart. Good day, Cass. $5 super chat. Excuse me. Good day, Cass. Finally playing Like a Dragon, Gaiden, the man
who erased his name.
I forgot the whole title. It's way too long. Good so far. 28 hours in on chapter 3. Shorter game, though. Had a dream Mafia the Old Country was bad.
No, take it back, Don. Mafia the Old Country is going to be fantastic. It's one of the pillars of my year.
I too think it's going to be fantastic, and Don is a huge Mafia fan, so he's pumped for it. So he's having nightmares.
I am not going to acknowledge any badness for Mafia the Old Country based on Don Lionheart's dreams.
Badness. Don, thank you. Appreciate you, and shout out to Mitch Robco. We're going with Mitch Robco, new season gaming member. Thank you very much, Mitch. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoy the show and hanging out with us. All right. Tide hit us with, I got to say, again, no Travis. We get the glow up. I think, let me get the comment off the screen. That may help us a little better, huh? I think the trading of Travis for Mekel is definitely a win here. I suggest that we do that going forward. Mekel, you literally look like you're about to star in Assassin's Creed Mirage. Like you might as well just be the main character in Mirage. I think you've got it nailed. I would submit your application today. So, although with Ubisoft, I don't know where that's going to lead to, but we'll see. Hoeg, as always, AI loves you.
I have my now traditional AI smoldering eyes.
Yeah, you like that's straight out of like a cologne ad from the 18th century or something. I don't know what, it's that's pretty good. You even have the scar and still make the scar look good. You know what I mean?
That's what I say about my own head scar.
I mean, that's not bad for me. Usually I look a little strange or bulbous or like Murr from Impractical Jokers, which again, I kind of do a little bit there, but it's not bad.
I kind of want to see this in game form, honestly. I think Ains, you're giving out quests. I'm ready to go.
Yes. Yeah, I'm down. I like the little town there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what are we? Are we in like medieval England assassins? Is that what we are?
Kind of looks like it. Yeah, something like that. Somewhere in Western Europe. Yep. But Tide, as always, legend. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. And we got suddenly another super chat from Mr. Don Lionheart, which we will rotate over to if I can click the right buttons and don't Hoeg it here. Bear with me. All right, Don, another $5 super chat. Whoa. Huge fan. I just played 1 and 3. They've been good, but not great. Whoa. Don's coming in with super chats attacking Mafia out of the blue. I guess I misspoke.
I mean, Mafia 1 is definitely an older design. I don't think the remake actually brings it up to modern kind of pedigree. So if Don didn't play it in its initial release, I can understand that. 3 has its own issues. It's one of the best stories in games. I will stand by that. But certainly the gameplay in the middle is a lot of filler work. So I can allow all of this and still say that Mafia is one of my favorite series.
All right. Maybe I apparently misspoke. I thought he was really into it. I'm sorry, Don. Relax. Although apparently I need to just say you said things you didn't, and you'll keep super chatting. So that may work. We may continue doing that.
Oh, no. It's a dark path, Ains.
He knows that's not going to happen. I'm going to write a piece for SG on it sometime soon. Excellent. Yes, I know. We mentioned that. So cool. Very good, Don. Thank you very much.
It is good that you talked about that. I thought Don was just making his own way now, and he's just telling you what pieces.
Charting his own path. No doubt. All right. And just before we jump in, I want to go give a quick shout out again to our good friend Shoosh, who's usually in the chat hanging out with us, who has done the updated graphics. They quickly sent me an updated one for Mekel joining today. They're making some further updates. We've had some discussions that watching this on a big TV, it's a little bright, so we're going to tone it down a little bit, and we'll get that worked out. And they are doing all that for us. So big shout out to Shoosh. Thank you as always.
Yeah, I didn't even notice. Mekel got his own name card. That's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't even request it. Shoosh literally just sent it to me overnight. So, all right. So let's get into kind of what we've been playing. I honestly, guys, I don't have a ton to talk about here. I actually found myself going back and playing Resident Evil 4 Remake again. It's really incredible update from Capcom on the PS5 Pro. It's stunning, which is great to play. I never actually, I'm ashamed to say, never finished it. I think I'm on chapter 12 now. I stopped playing it on chapter 10. So I've been enjoying that. It's a really fun game. It's, over the top goofy Resident Evil, but with its kind of action focus, and I'm having a great time with it. So other than that, the only game I want to quickly mention is Tape to Tape, which I actually talked to Hoeg and Travis about this week, but was recommended to me by Eric, Game Positive, in that it is a roguelite where you kind of create your own hockey team. And obviously, as a big hockey fan and player, that's kind of interested me. So I've only played it a very short amount. It's really goofy. It's quite funny art style, kind of, lighthearted gameplay. But you basically create your team. You can build up your characters. You go through exercises, and I'm just getting into that. So I'll talk a little more about that in the future. But it's on Steam. It's in early access. And I think they're trying to get to 1.0 later this year. It's $20. And if you're interested in hockey or, supporting early access games, you can check that out. But I'm going to pass it, Mekel, to you as our guest here. What you've been playing, what you've been getting into, any game that's kind of currently got all your focus?
I have been going back in back catalog, so I'm currly replaying through Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes.
Twin Snakes, I haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah, I got my copy signed by David Hayter, a good friend of mine,
nice.
And by Jennifer Hale. I've been just going back playing more retro games, and I think it's just because of trying to avoid burnout of covering modern titles, because they've been coming out so rapidly. Especially, I feel like from 2023 on to now, it's just been like every month it's like 3 or 4 big titles, and I'm like, all right, I don't really get to play and enjoy them as I would casually, so let me go back and play something that really like. I know a lot of people have strong opinions about the Twin Snakes, but hey, I loved it when it originally came out, and it's still fun to go back and play it with all the MGS2 broken mechanics that don't work in MGS1, but it's still so fun and over the top. So yeah,
it is.
That's awesome.
It's even more anime than Kojima usually is. It's an interesting interpretation of that story.
Yeah,
fair enough. Any what are you looking forward to in we kind of have a couple weeks, if that, of downtime in January here before February just goes completely off the rails, to your point, of big game releases. Any what's the kind of biggest game you're looking for at the beginning of the year here? Looking forward to, I mean. Excuse me.
I think for me, it's probably going to be Xenoblade Chronicles X, because I feel like I was the one person that was playing that back when it came out, before like Xenoblade 2 came out, and everyone's like, I'm a fan of this series. I'm like, no, you're not, because if you haven't been here since Xenogears, you're not a fan of Tetsuya Takahashi's work and Zodiac Saga. But Xenoblade Chronicles X, because I've been waiting for a decade for what that ending meant, and now they're gonna fully expand on it. It's interesting because I was talking to Caitlin Glass, who voices Alma, one of the main characters in that game, and I had mentioned to her, I think a couple years ago, I was like, hey, the ending of Xenoblade 3 and its DLC, I think we're going back to X. And she's like, what? Let me call the studio. No one said anything to me. And then, hey, they called her in, and she texted me. She's like, hey, you know your stuff, huh, Miguel? I'm like, hey, I do.
That's
awesome.
A
really cool trailer they released this week. There are some glow ups, even on a game that already looked awesome.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't know anything about it, to your point, Mekel, but my timeline was filled with people kind of going nuts about it.
X is interesting because it's not in that main Chronicles series, so you can kind of just play it even if you're not up to speed on everything.
Yeah.
But obviously there's a lot of stuff in any given series that you can get out of it if you know other aspects of the Xenoblade franchise. And I don't know if Xenogears actually comes into those games. I haven't thought about it, but I'm sure there's a lore video somewhere that explains the connections of the various Xeno series.
The interesting thing is Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and especially its DLC Future Redeemed tied Xenosaga trilogy directly into Xenoblade Chronicles. And it also directly mentioned Gears. So officially, the Xenosaga trilogy is tied into the Xenoblade Chronicles trilogy by way of the main villains are directly mentioned in a radio conversation. And I think with X Definitive Edition, they're actually retconning it to be part of the original Xenoblade Chronicles trilogy. Just
wouldn't surprise me.
That radio conversation that mentioned direct things from that too. So, hey, we will see. I'm gonna think a lot of people who may have loved 3 and 2 are not going to like X because it's a very different game. But that world of Mira is just amazing to explore. And when you get your mech, it is amazing.
You do get your own mech.
Awesome. Fantastic. Hoeg, I know you're always playing something interesting, my friend. What you got?
Well, now I have a little bit of a higher burden. I can't promise any of this is interesting, but I do find it interesting that all of us said this was the week to kind of go back and pick up games that we hadn't fully completed or things that we were interested in that we didn't get to under the deluge. And so the big game that I got this week is Ys 3, Oath in Felghana, the remake that Falcom put out. Ys is one of my favorite series of all time. I go back to the TurboGrafx 16 and TurboGrafx CD to play books 1 and 2. And this is a remake of a remake because Oath in Felghana is actually a remake of the original Ys 3, which was called, I think, Wanderers in Ys or Through Ys. I never know what the prepositions are. But this was a game that was released originally, I think, on the PlayStation Portable. Might have been the Vita. A Sony console that I had in my hands. And then this is a rebuild of that. And so Ys 3 has been through the ringer. It's a great game. I love it. But one of the things that it did this week for me when I played this game, there you go. Yeah, Ys. Was bring me back into the love of kind of earlier JRPG format. So I wound up going through like the various eShop sales and picking up a bunch of JRPGs. So I have a bunch of indie games that I've been playing this week, none of which are probably going to be recognized by most people listening or watching this, but they're littler indie games. RFL I was enjoying earlier this week. Another game called Rise of the Third Power. Chained Echoes is one of the best of the indie JRPG series. This is from a couple of years ago, and Crosscode is one of my favorites. So I've been playing those behind the scenes. There was also a sale on Persona 3 Reload, which I had been looking to get on my PlayStation just because for whatever reason, that's where I feel like my JRPGs need to live. And so I got Persona 3 Reload on sale, and I realized after having played this for a couple hours that apparently I haven't played Persona 3, or if I did, it was a very short amount of time because I was conflating my memories of Persona 4 with Persona 3. And so that's like finding a brand new AAA style JRPG that you thought you had played, that you were just playing to play the remaster, and it's new and it's from one of your favorite series. So I've been enjoying that this week. But as you can see, it's mostly games that I'd otherwise already experienced, lighter JRPG indie games. I can recommend basically all of them, the ones that I just listed out. Crosscode is one of my favorites. That's an action RPG that takes place in a fake MMO. And if that sounds at all interesting to you, they do a lot of cool things with that conceit. I love that game to death. Chained Echoes is basically the JRPG of the Super Nintendo era that you always wanted, with modern design sensibilities, with enemies on screen, a mech of your own, as long as we're talking about games where you get mechs. And I couldn't recommend that one more. We're always talking in this line of games about expenditures that are probably not more than $20, $25. So if you like JRPGs, check those out. That's what I've been playing this week. Nothing super depthful, nothing deep into the weeds of the e-store or anything like that, but I'm loving it. Doing my JRPG thing. All thanks to East, reminding me how much I love this.
That's fantastic.
Is the best. Love this series.
Mekel, can you sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I raised your mic a little bit in the studio. We had someone saying that you sound a little bit quieter than Hoeg and I, so I tuned you up a little bit. So audience, just let us know if that helps.
Oh,
all right.
I'm just loud. I understand.
All right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I'm just glad that Ease is getting more recognition. Like I've been with the series since the early '90s. I've loved all the different games.
It's been around so long.
It's just crazy, like that. It's taken, I guess, outside of Japan, close to 30 years or so for it to finally start catching on. But if you guys haven't, anyone who's watching or listening, if you've not played Ease, play that series. They are phenomenal games. Even 1 and 2 with the bump combat, I absolutely love it. So play those and then watch the anime, which you can find easily, on Amazon. Nice. I think it's like $30, but it's pretty good. Pretty good.
I love that bump combat. The original East had you just run into the enemies, and it would determine whether or not you did damage to them based on armor calculations that were just happening as you slammed your body into them. But what makes that an interesting system is that if you haven't grinded enough, if your level isn't high enough, then basically you go to kill a monster and the monster kills you, and you have to go, what's happening? And then you run around the plains and you bump into the little spiders and things until you can go and bump into that skeleton monster. But it's fantastic. 3 takes that concept and adds a sword swing button and some jumping, and that all works very well. I think East came to popularity in the West primarily with 8. So one of the best things about this series, and I said this on Twitter earlier, but one of the best things about this series is that it dramatically changes itself. Like you think about Final Fantasy changing itself, East changes itself in almost every iteration, or at least in arcs across iterations, and yet still kind of holds on to its core in a way that I don't think Final Fantasy does, right? One of the best parts about Final Fantasy is that variety, but it doesn't have that same sense of core that East does. You're always at Al Kristen. You're always on an adventure across places that are vaguely like real-life Europe. You're always getting rockin' music for boss fights, and it just adds this vibe to give Ains' term some coverage here that goes across decades of gameplay and completely different kinds of games. But by the time you get to 7, 8, 9, 10, which is where we're at right now, you've got games that I think could stand with all of the personas and Final Fantasies of the world, but really with that kind of Falcom sensibility of we're not going to over-render, we're not going to overdo these things so that we can put these out on a more frequent basis. And now, if you watched any of their announcements in the last couple of months, they're doing some cool stuff with crossovers between East and their Trails series, which is also very popular. And I just love this. It's going to be a great year again for JRPG fans, just like last year was.
Oh, I have a controversial question for you.
Okay.
Sea of Stars or Chained Echoes?
I think I lean Chained Echoes. I love Sea of Stars. Sea of Stars is gorgeous. Sea of Stars does a little bit too much environmental puzzling for like my perfect game. Chained Echoes doesn't do quite as much of that. And so I prefer that kind of game. But Sea of Stars is excellent. If you like these kinds of games, you can't go wrong with Sea of Stars. It just has a lot of its dungeons and levels go into switch puzzles and environmental like navigation in a way that I don't love as much as some.
Nice. Yeah. Silkenet says there's a speed run of East 8 during Games Done Quick this week. That hopefully drove some more interest towards that. Animal on Hoeg channel also asked, sorry, how do you spell this series name? I'm trying to look it up and I'm not familiar. So yeah, I told him it's YS. Yeah, it's not what you expect. So but yes, it's been around a very long time. I still remember, for whatever reason, because I loved the Phantasy Stars of the age and I was into those very early RPGs on the Sega Master System. I still remember seeing East for the first time at Toys R Us of all things. Like that, for whatever reason, that's like burned into my brain. It's been around a very, very long time. Yeah. So do you still have? You said TurboGrafx and CD. Do you still have those?
I never had those. Those are my dad's. But they might be in the parents' basement. I don't know.
Tell Papa Hoeg to DM me. I'm gonna buy those from him. So
we loved our TurboGrafx.
Oh, Turbo was great, man. Yeah, fun system. Also, one of the original like full system portables. You know, the Duo. Like you could take your full game in color on the go. Awesome.
That was a battery eater. I remember that.
Yeah. Like the Nomad, right? We're full in retro land at this point. All right. Yeah, so I think we'll jump over to our main discussion then, or start it anyway. As you said, it's a good month, I think, for a lot of people right now, just kind of playing a whole bunch of random games before February crushes us all. So, but one game is not coming out in February anymore, and that is Assassin's Creed Shadows. So to start us off on this Ubisoft discussion, we get a strategic update from Ubisoft this week where they announce another delay to Assassin's Creed Shadows by about a month or so to March 20th. And I'm going to put on the screen right now the kind of excerpt of the strategic update. I don't really have to read the whole thing. I mean, I guess I can, but they're basically saying Ubisoft announced today that it's appointed leading advisors to review and pursue various transformational, strategic, and capitalistic options to extract the best value for stakeholders. Man, that's a fun sentence.
I do love corporate talk, don't you?
Yeah, that's a corporate sentence through and through. This process will be overseen by the independent members of the board of directors. Ubisoft will inform the market in accordance with applicable regulations if and once a transaction materializes. Good God. Basically, they said operationally, the company is continuing to drive significant cost reductions together with highly selective approach to investments, expects to exceed 200 million euros in reduction of its fixed cost base by fiscal year 25 to 26 on an annualized basis. In December, they note that they closed down X Defiant, discontinued, as well as the studio closures we previously talked about here. So this was kind of set up, and Hoeg, I'll pass to you in a second, but this was obviously more of a communication along with the delay of Assassin's Creed Shadows because they very clearly want that to succeed in its best possible footing right out of the gate in terms of sales. But this is, kind of setting up what we had previously discussed around making Ubisoft attractive, right, as they start to kind of negotiate for what that looks like for investors and other things going on. So I know you did a virtual legality this week. I haven't watched it yet, as we talked about pre-show.
That is okay.
But I'm sure you, kind of went into more detail. So why don't you set us up with the gist of what you kind of covered from a corporate perspective, and then we'll get into more details.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think even before I saw the strategic update document, I saw the delay of Assassin's Creed. And even reading that, after we had our talks here on Bitcast, I've had talks in Virtual Legality, I've had talks with Last Stand Media about Ubisoft. One of the things that I had said that we had talked about was that they were putting a lot of pressure on Assassin's Creed Shadows, right? With the failure of Outlaws, at least as described to us by the various press members that talk about sales on that game, with the failures of 2024 overall, X Defiant, the trouble that they had, obviously not with Skull and Bones, which is one of the best pirate games ever made.
Stop it.
But I might be the only person on earth that thinks that. So Ubisoft has a bit of trouble. We knew that they were considering selling to Tencent. We knew that there were Bloomberg reports that the Guillemot family was asking for additional control protections if Tencent took over. So we knew that they were in various processes here. Delaying Assassin's Creed Shadows, to me, looks like retaining a question mark in the asset value of that property, right? And what I mean by that is if you are in the business of potentially selling your bag of assets, you're at Ubisoft, whether you're an investor, whether you're the Guillemots, whoever it is you might be, and you say, all right, we've put all our eggs in this one basket. We've basically come down to, will Assassin's Creed Shadows be a Grand Theft Auto type success in order to save this company? Then
I hope that's not what they're hoping. But
then
anyway,
it might be the case that you say, that's a pretty big bet. That's a hard threshold to cross. Maybe we don't find out. Maybe the best chance for us to sell the company at an advantageous value for our shareholders is to not put a stake in the ground saying this is what Assassin's Creed Shadows was worth. So I look at that delay. I don't think they're lying in that delay. I don't think when they say that we could use more polish, that's wrong. I think every game could use more polish. Every game could get another month and be better. But I think there is an underlying conversation piece there that comes out in that strategic update that you were just reading, Ains, that is, okay, we are now actively considering whether to sell the company outright, whether to separate the assets and sell them in buckets. And now, because we're going through that process, it makes sense for us to not establish that Assassin's Creed Shadows certainly is a failure. If that were to happen, that would be catastrophic for shareholder value. But we don't even want to establish that it's not the be-all, end-all biggest game in history, right? We want it to just be a question mark going into the sales process. And that's what I saw. I did a virtual legality on this. I'm trying to do more focused virtual legalities. So it's less than 30 minutes. If you're interested in more, check that out. I think there's a lot in that statement that you can piece out of what's happening behind the scenes. Their executive advisors, the analysis of what this is, the fact that it's going to independent board members rather than the guillemets. If you don't recognize that phraseology, it means board members that don't have an active share interest or management interest in the operations of the company. So they're supposed to be the most neutral, the most objective. And that statement is basically authored by Yves Guillemot to say, look, we're handing this off to third parties as best we can. We're going to try to extract value for you. We know we're in a tailspin. We know the share price is going down. It went down even after this delay, even more.
It's less than $3 right now.
But we're going through the steps that are necessary to try to find a way for you to get some value out of your investment in our company. Now, does that mean that Ubisoft is likely to be sold? I think that's still an open question because we don't know what the Guillemot block is going to demand of Tencent, who is, of course, the most likely investor. We know Tencent is itself going through its own kind of issues from a regulatory perspective with the Department of Defense, with the FTC interlocking boards of directors and things that are happening behind the scenes there. My plan is to do another virtual legality on Tencent in particular sooner rather than later, but I don't know when that'll happen. But all of this, the entirety of these announcements on Assassin's Creed seem to be a part of that story more than just a game that isn't coming together, right? So a lot of people ask me, is this a Cyberpunk situation? And I can't tell you what it looks like behind the scenes. I can't tell you how that game is coming in, whether it's hot or not. But there's a lot of reasons to believe that this particular delay is informed by an entirely other universe of information and needs for the Ubisoft Corporation, rather than this game is just falling apart and is broken right now.
Yeah. I mean, you're more detailed than I am on this stuff, but I do have a good kind of foundational knowledge of what they're looking to do here, right? But you and I have talked about, I've been through this, right, in career and everything. So I think that exactly what you said is right. I think that also speaks to the fact that, this game, as I was telling people in other channels this week, we saw this game with the producer in June of last year, right? I was at Summer Game Fest, and there was people playing it hands-on, and it looks fantastic, honestly.
I think it'll sell a lot. I think it'll be a success for them.
It's going to be a big success.
But is it the kind of success that they might need right now for their internals? I don't see it being this kind of blowaway success. I do think it could potentially beat Valhalla, which is a big success for them already. But they're worried, right? Outlaws didn't do anywhere near what they thought it would do. So that causes all sorts of consternation at management and from the investor crew at Ubisoft. Yeah.
And we're going to get into, like I said, all the games they currently have in development, but very clearly they're IP staking here, right? And kind of thinking about what exactly as it said, really. It was pretty transparent in the fact of extracting value for, the company. So, Mekel, I don't know, you and I haven't talked about this. So any open thoughts on Shadows, the delay, Ubisoft in general, what you're hoping for, anything you'd like to add?
I guess I could say, I'm not that surprised that they pushed the game back. And honestly, I'm very excited to play the game. I haven't gotten to try it out or anything like that. But from everything I've seen, it looks great. People have been asking for, an Assassin's Creed set in Japan for the longest, and they finally did it. Granted, after Ghost of Tsushima, but still, nonetheless, they're doing it. So I've been excited for it, even though I've gotten a lot of hate for being excited for the game, which is weird in this.
It is weird. It's a weird time.
It is. I'm just you can't just like something or not like something and move on. I don't know.
I've gotten some DMs. I made Outlaws my game of the year last year. I've gotten some.
How dare you? How dare you?
I think Outlaws was my favorite game last year.
It was fun. And it's you're not allowed to say that anymore. If you enjoy something, it's not the popular consensus. But Ubisoft is I've had a feeling for a while that they are going through some like major changes because they're not as popular as they used to be, and their games aren't selling to the caliber that they were, say, like 2009 or onwards, or even the 2010s. And it's just one of those things where it's interesting when you look at the internet discourse, anything regarding Ubisoft or EA, there's this immediate vitriol and hate, and I'm just like, do you guys have stocks in these companies, or are you playing video games? Just play the games. Everyone's an armchair analyst now on especially on X.
Yeah. Yeah, I still think it's going to be great. And honestly, I mean, March is probably going to shape up to be another month. I mean, as we said, almost every month has some big releases now, but February really was ridiculous. So even outside of the things Hoeg talked about with what Ubisoft is both trying to do and hoping for with Shadows, from a pure sales success, it feels like getting out of that a couple week stretch is probably a good move in and of itself. Regardless, Luke, shout out to Luke at Xbox Smash Fest, says, legit question. I just started learning buying stock. Is this a good time to buy Ubisoft? I say bet the house on it, Luke. Bet everything.
As the lawyer for Bitcast, not engaged in that capacity, by the way, I have to say that Ains and anybody else that speaks on this show is not giving financial advice, and that you should do your own research on understanding what stocks to buy or not.
Sorry, I was typing a comment. Yes, thank you for covering me there, Hoeg. Don't bet your house on anything, especially not with Ubisoft on it. But
don't take stock advice from your favorite video game podcast.
That's usually not their area of expertise. Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, I it's just going to be interesting. I think the year for Ubisoft is, there's going to be a lot that unfolds for Ubisoft this year, in one way or another, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. So we'll see how Shadows performs. We're now, still 2 months out from that launch, but we'll see how that performs. Now, what I also want to talk about with Ubisoft is what we know they currently have in development. They had that studio kind of closure and shuffling. What was it? Just before the holiday, and X Defiant shutting down. We know Division Heartland was canceled, right? But I'm going to quickly run through this, and here's what they have as of this moment anyway, announced. Now, whether or not all of these things continue with what's going on with Ubisoft, time will tell. So we know Shadows on March 20th. They're also supposed to launch this year, Assassin's Creed Nexus, which is that new hub that you're supposed to go into for all things Assassin's Creed. Because if you remember, I don't know how long ago it was now, 12, 18 months, something like that. They talked about kind of their similar, where they were kind of narrowing down their IP focus, right, to try and kind of focus on their bigger franchises like Assassin's Creed. So that's supposed to come at some point this year. They also have Assassin's Creed Jade, codename Jade, which is their mobile Assassin's Creed game based in China. That's supposed to come out this year.
And they have witches, right? There's a witch Assassin's Creed somewhere.
They have Assassin's Creed codename Hex, which is, quote, a different type of AC game, with, fans and whatnot looking at the emblem and the logo, basically saying that it looks like it has to do with witches, has no release target. So that's just Assassin's Creed alone. Then announced at Ubisoft Forward back in Summer Game Fest, we got Anno 117
Anno!
Patrimona.
I love Anno so much. Don't kill Anno, Ubisoft.
I mean, they just announced at their last showcase, so you would hope, that survives, but we shall see. What's funny
about that is from the perspective of a city builder, a strategy gamer, you say Assassin's Creed Shadows is Ubisoft finally fulfilling the promise of putting an Assassin's Creed in feudal Japan. To a lot of people that play Anno, they've been asking for something in the Roman Empire. Like, this is also that grant of a wish for that series. So I'm really excited about Anno 117, but I hope it gets to come out.
Yeah. Yep. Then, one of their other big franchises, of course, is Division. That's probably the one I like the most from Ubisoft. So they have Division Resurgence, which is their mobile Division game. I didn't even realize, I just read this morning, that's actually already released in Southeast Asia under a different publisher name, which is kind of crazy. But that's supposed to release formally this year as well. under Ubisoft, obviously, and other regions. And then they have Division 3, which they announced is in the works, whatever the hell that means. That could be pre-production, honestly, probably still is at this point.
Well, Massive was doing Avatar and Star Wars, so they couldn't have been working too many people on Division 3 at the same time.
Yeah, it's probably, just planning. And then Heartland was canceled, as we know. Then you have the long running Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake that has been the remake has been remade multiple times. The last we got on that at Summer Game Fest was 2026, with that, kind of a lot of that development kind of, restarting, if you will.
I would not bet the house on that one.
No, Luke, don't put all your money on that stock. Then we have Beyond Good and Evil 2, which
that's not a real game. Nope. I'm not acknowledging that game exists. It's not real.
Which I couldn't believe. I mean, I guess I could believe, but that was officially announced at E3, which already sounds dated, but 2017. So that game was announced 7.5 years ago.
Yeah, y'all remember E3? Beyond Good and Evil 2 does.
No release target on that. And then they have Project U, which is as they describe it, a session-based co-op shooter, which I only learned this morning, and I don't know, maybe I just wasn't up to speed on this one. They've already had a closed beta for this, but there are no further details nor release date for this as of this moment. And then finally, as they announced last year, or I think it was last year, right? They're supposedly making a Splinter Cell remake, which according to them actually entered development in 2021. So it doesn't have a target release date, but it's 2025. So, I mean, you think if they're actually working on that truly, unlike Beyond Good and Evil 2, that's got a couple years of development under it at this point too. So
for the record, if you're hankering for some Splinter Cell action, you really should play Star Wars Outlaws. That is a Splinter Cell game in Star Wars land.
Okay. I still haven't gotten to it. I will.
I know, Ains.
But this someone Silkanet says this entire timeline feels like Silk Song. And I mean, they're not wrong. Like this is a bunch of announcements and projects that have gotten off the ground and hit the ground and fallen over and restarted, and there's not a lot of confidence in this list.
But that's the story of why Shadows is a load-bearing pillar for the company right now.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So as I went through this, I was, I feel bad because I know people at Ubisoft. I generally like Ubisoft games.
And do they not even have a placeholder Far Cry announcement? Like get excited about Far Cry on the Moon? They don't have anything even for that franchise at all? Someone
can correct me, but not that I've seen. No, which good point. I hadn't even thought about it, to be honest with you. But I just like Ubisoft is one of those companies, as Mekel said, like we all know in the gaming community, there's a weird connotation that happens with Ubisoft in various portions of the community. But I generally enjoy their games. We've talked a lot about them as a company and mismanagement and the staff and all that before, which I'm not going to get into. But I just hope for the best. I think Shadows is going to be a fantastic game. I hope we do get to see things like the Division 3 come to fruition. And to Hoeg's point, Anno. And I hope they can figure out some path forward here that retains some of the things we love about Ubisoft into the future. But when you just look at their financials, you look at their management, we haven't even touched on, obviously, all the stuff that came out over the past few years of internal issues, right? And things that have happened in the company. And then you look at this kind of IP, I won't even say release schedule. It's not. Like what they're working on, it's just messy. It feels really, really disorganized and mismanaged. And if
the investors agree with you,
yeah, that's what I mean. Like if I'm, I'm not obviously, but if I'm one of these companies looking to invest in Ubisoft, this has more question marks than a Riddler suit.
Yeah, and if you remember, they had a bunch of problems in 2023. They delayed everything to 2024. That was going to be the year they made good. And then it didn't happen that way. right? And so they're in a series of kind of bad bets where they put the company on the line. It's that guy at the craps table that just keeps rolling the dice. And the investors say, you know what? Why don't you turn the dice over? Because this isn't working out for you. You got a cold hand right now. And that's what's happening. But my God, if you take Anno Build the Roman Empire away from me at the last minute for an asset sale, that's going to be an angry episode of the Bitcast.
Nice. Don't promise us fun things. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at this list, and if they're talking about, I don't know how big Anno is, Hogue. Not to you, but like in terms of sales and kind of community, right? So
functional for a strategy game, like
functional.
Yes, it is a popular strategy series that can carve out a space in the especially PC game landscape. But is it setting the world on fire? I don't think so.
No. Okay. Well, we will see. I'll ask you guys this, just, throw a dart, but, and Hogue, I'll start with you only because you've just talked about this. Where do you think when we revisit Ubisoft at the end of 2025, what would be your guess as to what happens here? And obviously we're not predicting anything, more of a fun type of just, what do you think we'll see out of Ubisoft?
My guess right now is that the Guillemot block, it's not just Yves. He's got a family trust that owns a bunch of these shares, both together with Tencent and separately. My guess is that they demand more control than Tencent or anyone else is willing to give them. And with the bloat, like we didn't even talk about how many employees Ubisoft has for the games that they release or don't release at that company, it becomes a business transaction that looks potentially more attractive to just go and separate the assets out than to take the whole operational entity on, especially if you've got founders that are asking for more control than you think it's worth. So I think best guess is that we look at something like a fire sale, like the old THQ transaction. I think Guillemot's going to run this right into an asset sale, is my guess. But Shadows could come out and blow the doors off and save the company. I mean, that would be a big story. That would be probably the most unlikely but biggest story in video gaming for this year if that were to happen that way. But I think the most likely is Shadows comes out, is a success, not enough to give the support for management that you would need to keep that control. You'd have Tencent with money. You'd have activist investors wanting someone else to come in, and an intransigent founder group that is demanding more power in this situation. And I think it's likely that the assets are worth more than the entity on its own, which I think would be bad for anybody that likes the game series that they release as they stand. I think if you love Assassin's Creed, and I love Assassin's Creed, I love the virtual tourism, I love the detail they put into these worlds, I love that series. If you like what Ubisoft has done with it, I think that series will survive. It's too valuable to not survive under brand name, but it won't be the same under new management. It'll be different. There will be different emphases. There will be different things that are made in that game series. And that goes across the board for everything that you talked about. So I think it would be a moment where if you like Ubigame, and I think they get justified criticism for combining their kind of game design elements across their series, but I do like Ubigame, then that'll be a moment of sadness, because that kind of game design philosophy will essentially evaporate instantaneously, along with thousands and thousands of jobs.
Yeah. Before I go to you, Mekel, I just want to let Hogue know that it's 10:50 on a Sunday morning. Words like intransigent are just that's a bit much, Hogue. All right, calm it down.
I apologize.
Mekel, what do you think, man? As we're looking at Ubisoft and we revisit this conversation later this year, what are you hoping for? What are you thinking? What you got?
I really hope that Assassin's Creed Shadow does well, and that we don't get a fire sale for Ubisoft, because even though like I said earlier about the whole internet discourse towards anything Ubisoft or EA, people don't realize that losing titans in gaming like that, or if they get broken up like that, that's really not good for gaming as a whole. Yes, they get valid criticisms. Yes, we can criticize them for a lot of decisions that they make, but gaming, the landscape of gaming right now is so shaky and uncertain that the more closures we have, and people shouldn't be rooting for that. That's a lot of people out of jobs. And we've seen how bad the game industry has been the last couple of years when it comes to that aspect of people losing their jobs and companies and studios closing. So I hope it can turn around. I'm not very confident looking at this list, but fingers crossed that Assassin's Creed Shadow can turn it around, because I really want a Splinter Cell remake, and they better have Michael Ironside come back and do it.
It'll be his AI voice.
He's too no!
Old. Have you heard him talking now? I don't think he would make sense as Sam Fisher right this second.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, don't even put that out there in the universe, Hoeg, of AI Ironside. Oh.
That's what the SAG strike was about. So it would be difficult for Ubisoft to make that happen.
Yeah, very fair. True. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty much with you guys. Like I said, I know people there. I've gotten to meet people at Ubisoft. I like what they bring to the industry. As you guys both said, we can complain about various aspects of their decision making, their things they've done, aspects of their games. You can do that about nearly every company in the gaming industry, to be fair. But they do bring something unique to the industry. Their IPs bring something new. Their personality brings something to the gaming industry, and it would be a shame to see that just completely blown up. So I hope no matter what happens, and something will happen, right? No matter what happens, I hope we get to at least retain some of what Ubisoft brings to the industry in some form. We'll have to see what that looks like.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that is I talked about thousands losing their jobs in a fire sale or even an investor sale to somebody like Tencent. The realistic answer here is, regardless of whether or not they have an asset sale, a stock sale, they move forward with the Guillemot family, they are definitely in the process of and have to cut headcount. Right? When you see the corporatees in that strategic statement about reducing expenditures, especially in high-cost geographies, that's about closing studios. That's about reducing headcount at the company. And that's going to happen either way. Not only because that's what investors demand, but because you can't justify that many bodies making things that aren't succeeding at the same level as Mekel rightly said, just a decade ago. Right? And the industry has changed, but Ubisoft also clearly doesn't have their finger on the pulse of what's being made. And that's unfortunate for the developers. That's not their fault. They're making what they were told to make. They're moving forward with the games that they are told to make. But it is something that's going to happen one way or the other. So Ubisoft is going to have a reduction in workforce, whether that's at Guillemot's hands, Tencent's hands, or a whole syndicate of buyers of assets, is really not going to change that fact.
Sorry, I keep muting to type right when you finish your comment. That's poor cadence here. Yeah, Elizabeth said, not sure where the stock's sitting, but last I checked, it's not great. Yeah, I believe last I looked, it was under $3, something like $2.80 a share. So,
right. And we're not giving financial advice, but for folks that are asking that question.
Except for Luke.
For people that are asking that question, I mean, there is a version of investing. It's an aggressive version that says you buy low and then hope some white knight comes in and buys the company, because you're going to have to buy it at a premium. I would be very careful and look at the fundamentals of what Ubisoft has, listen to conversations like this to understand what the value of that company is. And then also understand, like I said at the top of this conversation, that the founders, the Guillemot family, is making life difficult for investors, right? And that's fine. You understand where they're coming from. I'm not throwing them under a bus for that, but it does make a saving investment, an acquisition that gets you a lot of money, less likely than it might otherwise be. And I had these conversations. A lot of people came to my channel during Activision Blizzard King and said, well, when do I get in, Rick? It's like, well, okay, you're asking the wrong person. Outside of the fact that I would never be invested in any of the companies that I'm talking about on YouTube, because I'm not an insane person, I can't recommend for you when the bottom is going to hit and when it's going to flip over into this deal likely happening. But the people that did buy Activision at the bottom got the money that Microsoft ultimately wound up paying them after it survived all those regulatory hurdles. So, I mean, it's up to you. It's going to be your risk portfolio. It's going to be your analysis of the company. But yes, there is certainly a thesis that says if it's low enough, you can make money on any garbage company. But there are also people that go bankrupt doing that.
Yes. Yeah. While you were talking, I pulled it up. Yeah, so it closed, I guess, on Friday at $246. So less than I even thought, less than 250, which is pretty crazy.
Right, and you've got a dollar peg on the secondary markets. So Ubisoft is also flirting with disaster there.
That is correct, sir. Yep. A year ago, it was more than double that. I mean, still not fantastic, but even last year, it's dropped nearly 50% of its value. Yeah. So, anyway, we will see what happens. And obviously, this will be a topic. Like we said, check out Hoeg's Virtual Legality if you want a little more detail. And then, we'll pay attention and talk about this weekly, and we'll see what happens this year until we have to revisit it. But on to slightly more, I would say, fun topics, right? Why don't we talk a little bit? Yeah, like actual games. Why don't we talk a little bit about the Switch 2 and what we heard this week from, like I said, we don't really like to talk about insiders or rumors here, right? But this one I think is pretty valid, and I usually only bring up the valid ones, which is the rumor came out that Halo Master Chief Collection and Forza are going to be heading to what we're going to call the Super Switch. We got to make a habit of that, Hoeg. Super Switch here.
I would love it to be the Super Switch. I think everything we're hearing on the internet is indicating that Nintendo went with Switch 2.
Yeah. So Nintendo. So I definitely foresee this happening. I think, we talked about this a little bit previously, but with the Super Switch, obviously more updated hardware, what we're hearing about NVIDIA chipset and DLSS potentially would allow, obviously easier transition for third-party games and other games like, Xbox expanding their portfolio onto other platforms. Master Chief Collection seems like an obvious win here. That game has been revised countless times in the past decade or so. And it's in a really good place, and it's also a really great way to get new fans into the Halo universe, right? The package it's one of the best packages, I think, in all of gaming. Yes, I'm biased. But I mean, you get so many games in there. So I think this would be a really great way. I've said from the start that I think that with Halo, in particular for Xbox, MCC, and if the rumors are true of the first project of the new Halo Studios being a remake of CE in Unreal 5, like a new version of the original Halo, I think that'll be multi-platform as well. That would not surprise me. So we will see. But either way, there's more and more. We kind of joked behind the scenes. I know a lot of people have seen so many leaks of the Super Switch this week. I mean, basically, we've seen it. There's literal everything about you want to see, from the Joy-Cons to the screen to the form factor to the what do you call it? The thing that sits in the dock.
I don't know, Ains. Yeah. What do you call it? The thing. I got nothing.
The thing. But all that's out there. The rumor, of course, is we're going to get a reveal this week, or an announcement this week. Excuse me. So we will see. But
one thing
what do you guys
find
think?
Fascinating about all that is that there was no way Nintendo was going to be able to keep manufacturers' mouths shut after CES. For folks that don't know, that's the consumer show that talks about things like fancy electronics coming this year and beyond. And so people ask me, why were the leaks all happening right now? And I said, well, if you're entering into an NDA for manufacturing a deal with Nintendo, one of the things you probably have as a hard line is I'm not going to hold any of my NDAs for you or anybody else past CES. So we saw everything come out all at once. And that makes sense, but I don't know what Nintendo was thinking there. I can't believe that it was always their plan to only have this conversation after that point in time.
I don't know. I will say, I talked about this a little bit on Cast Caught with Joe and Luke, is that from what I've seen of other people who kind of look at this stuff and look at the data, like Matt Piscatella, like Rebecca Valentine, they were posting this week around even though to us, right, who are kind of looking at all these things on a daily basis, the broad community that will buy the Nintendo products, right, in the mass market, don't know any of this is going on. Also combined with the fact that regardless of how many Super Switches they're able to produce this year, they're going to sell them all. So it might just be a factor of Nintendo, to your point, Hoeg, maybe they didn't think that through, and maybe they should have, obviously, with CES. But I think the point is it's not really going to make a difference. you know.
I don't know that it'll make a difference. I do think Nintendo historically has been a company that's very, very interested in controlling messaging and controlling its image.
True.
And this is unusual for them because this is eminently foreseeable, right? I have no doubt that all of their contracts had this kind of time frame set up as we are not going to hold to NDAs after this point in time. And I have to believe Nintendo said that was fine when they entered into the agreements because they thought they were going to talk about this beforehand. Now, you can say it doesn't matter, but to the extent you say that doesn't matter, these leaks, then their YouTube video that's going to announce this thing doesn't matter, right? I mean, like, you can go turtles all the way down on these kinds of conversations. And that's true. It matters much more what mom or grandma sees at the electronics boutique or the GameStop or the Toys R Us rebranded pop-up shop, wherever you're looking at video games. But I do think that this is still an interesting and unusual story because you don't see hardware manufacturers really have this much trouble keeping their stuff under wraps.
True.
And
from a hardware perspective in particular.
Yeah. And yeah, it's great that Nintendo hasn't lost track of their software. Nobody knows what the UI looks like. Nobody knows what these games actually operate at. And that's great. The developers can't afford to burn those bridges on these things. So that's not a surprise. And Nintendo's going to have that to show to us. But, you know, the fact that I know that the Joy-Con has an optical laser reader on one hand and it can be used as a mouse and things like that is something that I would have hoped Nintendo would be able to reveal their weirdness themselves. And so they're not going to be able to do that because of these kinds of leaks. And yes, that'll be a part of their YouTube video, along with people playing it on rooftops in Southern California or what have you. But I still think it's an interesting story.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Mekel, what do you think, man? Super Switch, you know, you interested in this? I don't know where you sit with the Switch today, but you know, where does Nintendo sit in kind of that interest level for you?
I mean, I'm interested in it because I've said for years at this point, like, the Switch needed to get a successor because the main reason the Switch, in my opinion, was so successful was because it had third-party support, which is something Nintendo has historically been hot and cold with. Their own first-party games, yes, that core audience is going to buy it. However, they are so few and far between, and you know, the Switch got so many Wii U ports because it made sense. Yep. Hey, we need to get a return on our investment. But the Switch 2, from everything I've seen as far as like leaks and whatnot, they've gone the route that I thought they needed to, which is to make something. I mean, if the Steam Deck and all these other handheld gaming PCs can make it so that you can play these modern games on the go, even if it's radically scaled down, Nintendo needs to step up to be able to allow that to happen too. So the Super Switch, I'm excited for it. I don't play the Switch as much as I used to, and I think it's just because I've gotten more just into general PC gaming. You know, I'm looking at that RTX 50 series and I'm like, yes, I need it. I don't need it, but I need it. I need it. But I'm excited for it. You know, I'm excited for the upgrade. Hopefully they launch with some bangers and we get some serious third-party support because these cloud versions of games was kind of rough.
Yeah, it can be.
Well, I think one thing that's definitely happened with this release that happened with the original Switch that I think really did lead them down the road to success was Nintendo had piled up their first-party game releases when the Switch came out. So you had Breath of the Wild, so that you had the robot punching games, that you had a Mario 3D ready to go that first year. Like every month when you owned a Switch, when that came out the first year, it was another new Nintendo game. And I think if you look at the Nintendo Directs, if you look at what they've released and what they've shown in the last year, that there's a lot of missing parts. There's a lot of people at Nintendo that are making things that we don't know about right now. So it would appear that the Switch 2 announcement is set to give us one of those big, strong cadences. I think Nintendo believes that was part of their success as well. And I am super excited about all that, right? I am super excited about a new Super Mario 3D adventure, potentially a new Zelda. I'm super excited about all the things that Nintendo can put out there. What I really want to see out of this announcement is that they have unlocked the power in the Switch 2, the Super Switch, in such a way that they can fix up things like the Link's Awakening performance. I felt that the Switch needed more power for a long time. I want to make sure that these games that exist on the Switch and are backwards compatible with the Switch 2 can unlock some of that. If there's any complaints I have about the PlayStation 5 Pro, it's that isn't happening right now, right? If you don't have a patch for your Pro settings, then you really aren't getting much benefit from the existing games on the PlayStation 5. And I don't blame Sony for that entirely, or my expectations for it, because they only unlocked the boost mode for the PlayStation 4 Pro like 6 months after it came out. I'm still hopeful that happens with the 5, because it is a little bit unfortunate to go in and say, well, if I could only unlock some of these things, then I know I have more power in that box to play these games. So my hope is that happens. My hope is that the Switch 2 kind of comes out of the box with that, has some portion of its announcement that says or shows things like the Lord of the Ring, not the Lord of the Rings, the Legend of Zelda games getting a little bit of a boost, because I think those are major sellers for that system and they could use the help.
Yeah. Completely agree with you. Yeah, I was looking up because I was thinking about going back to Ghost of Tsushima before Yote comes out later this year. And I was surprised to see that there is no PS5 Pro. It doesn't do anything for Ghost of Tsushima. I was like, of all titles, you would think that would be one of the showcases, for it. So, I completely agree with you. My guess, and this is just a guess, is that with the backwards compatibility and what they're doing with their Switch set, not the console, but the actual CPU, GPU combo there, and potentially DLSS, like we said, is that they've thought about that, and you will see an automatic almost improvement like you would updating your, going from an updated CPU in your PC and keeping all the other components kind of the same. That
would be my hope.
Yeah, I think we're going to see that. I hope we do. But we shall see. I also agree with you that, and I believe we talked about this like early last year, it's been a while in that Nintendo Direct. And I think we were talking about exactly what you said, which is they're very clearly doing things behind the scene to get ready for the new Switch. Because you can kind of see that wind down from a first party perspective with Nintendo. And we know they're grinding away. And I agree with you as well that I think the success of the Switch was catapulting off of that launch, right? And it being something new and fresh, and to kind of to do that again, because now the Switch as a form factor is a known quantity, you're going to have the software and the improvements, like you said, maybe some stuff with the UI online. I'm looking for online improvements to really get people invested. So
I say good luck to that, but I can certainly understand wanting that from Nintendo, but that is a far bridge for them to cross. Like a good functional online component that would be really impressive from them.
Oh, I understand. Nintendo is very, very good at disappointing me. So it's consistent.
I love my Switch, but I can't wait for Switch 2.
I definitely want to add something real quick. So
go.
I definitely see Halo Master Chief Collection and Forza going over, possibly Indiana Jones, if that's actually going to go to PS5. I think it could in some shape or form go to the Switch, possibly even Gears of War, because the method that Microsoft is going with Xbox, and a lot of people still seem to be confused about it, and I always use the example. I'm like, you remember Microsoft Office, how that used to be exclusive to PC, and then when they put it on Mac, it was kind of lesser, and then they're like, hey, let's just put it everywhere and get everyone's money, which is exactly what they're doing with Xbox. And that means more people are playing Xbox games, and I could see that happening. I think it would be an absolute success, because there's no, outside Mario Kart, there's no killer app for a racing title on Switch, and there's nothing like Halo Master Chief Collection in any way, shape, or form on Switch. So if they go there, they're gonna sell. I mean, Doom did well when it went to the Switch. I could see Halo and Forza going there too, and being an absolute success.
Agreed.
I think the third parties are going to be super excited about not having to get quite as far down the spec list as they've had to get the switcher out there and games like that, which are magic. They're black magic that they run on the Switch at all. But I think it's got to be improving for the third parties to get those games out there. And I think you could absolutely drop the mic and take all the outrage on the internet at the same time for the Switch 2 reveal if you had something like a Microsoft commercial showing the Switch 2 and games coming and saying this is an Xbox as part of that announcement. I think that could 100% happen. I could see Microsoft doing that. They are just crazy enough. I don't think even Nintendo would mind. And I would love to see more cross collaboration across all of these companies. I don't think we need a lot of Lego Horizons out there, but if that's the way Sony wants to dip its toes into the water, that's fine with me. And I would love to see Master Chief and Forza. I'm really just excited about Nintendo being in the ballpark of the current generation's console power, right? And that'll only last a beat. The next generations will go past them again. But I think that the separation between the Switch and the current generation has proven to be too much for third-party collaborators. And I think that this is going to be a big day. I'm very excited about this. If this announcement is this week, I'm just going to be pumped. I'll just be excited on the internet all day. Who knew? You can be positive on the internet.
That's not allowed.
That's not allowed. Can you imagine Diablo 4 for Switch 2?
I have enough problems in my life to not have a eminently, constantly portably available Diablo 4.
Yeah. ARPGs are great for those platforms. Like, it's just, it's, it only just occurred to me, but all those games. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place, but Mekel, you brought up a good point, and we talked about this a little bit on Cast too, around just, the success of the Steam Deck and things like the ROG Ally and, just portability in gaming becoming a seemingly bigger thing, right? And, there's no doubt in my mind anyway, the Switch 2 is going to obviously lead that front. And so, everything you guys said around the capability, the third-party interest, being able to kind of stand in the modern generation, which the Switch has kind of fallen off of, all going to be huge. So we've got the main question to ask you, Mekel. What's the Super Switch going to cost at launch? So not like bundle with games, not any of that, but just buying a Super Switch. And Travis, Hoeg, and I thought... Okay.
Don't tell him.
No. I was going to say, I brought this up to these guys either last week or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember now. But shockingly, all three of us picked a different price. Travis, of course, as he tends to do, starts to hear factual information and then starts to differ and change his mind. But, I'm kind of curious to see what you think.
I think it's going to drop for... Oh, man.
Put him on the spot. It's going to
have the improvements that I'm thinking.
There's a lot of factors to consider.
They could confidently drop it at $499. You're going to get people to complain about it, but people are going to buy it.
I think
that's where Hoeg was.
That's a very smart man that said
that. That's where Hoeg was, exactly. So Hoeg said $499. I said I just can't see Nintendo being $500 out of the gate. Though, I mean, I see it. I see how you get there, right? Switch 2 is Switch was a monumental success. They're going to have more demand than supply. I mean, there's all the factors that go. The hardware is more modern, etc. But it's also Nintendo. So I said $399. While we'll see, the current Switch, like the Lite and stuff, being wound down, OLED dropping price, that type of thing, to create that bigger gap. Travis originally said $299, and I'm like, Travis, the OLED Switch today is still $349. Like, so I don't remember where he actually ended up, Hoeg. Maybe he went to $349. I don't remember, but he was shifting around as he
was. Travis is an interesting guy. Whatever he said on that particular episode, I am sure that he will justify as having been always correct when the price is announced.
This is true. That's 100% true. All right. Let's see here. By the way, I want to call out Aaron. Just had a comment. This is a little while ago now. Sorry, I missed this, Aaron. But he said Ubisoft needs to survive long enough to make a new Rayman game. That's all. And I said I agree because
they have a team looking at Rayman.
Yeah. Come on.
Ains didn't go over everything they've talked about. There's Trackmania games. There's other more tiny Ubisoft products that aren't on that list that we discussed.
Yeah.
But one of them is that Ubisoft is looking at potentially a Rayman revival. So
come on, let's go.
We'll see.
What are we waiting on? Rayman and Banjo. That'll be my year.
Banjo in a 2D platformer, Rayman only in his 3D incarnation. There you go.
Curse you.
It's all monkey's paws all the way down. You get
exactly.
what you want, but not how you wanted it.
That would be actually quite comical. I think I would come on to the episode just looking in a way you've never seen me look before.
So Ubisoft needs to bring these two back. Evolution.
You're at least out of focus for me. Sorry. What is it? Evolution. Wow,
Bring
that's
it back,
digging
Ubisoft.
deep. Dreamcast, yeah.
Bring it back,
Classic.
Ubisoft.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, right? When I said like they have a personality within the industry that I think is unique, right? They've kind of played that role for a long time. And sadly, what we've seen out of the past, I would say, at least few years, right? They've tried to chase some trends unsuccessfully. They've done these other things which felt like it didn't feel like Ubisoft. And it's like, why don't you guys just stick with what you do well and do it? It sounds like an obvious statement. Do what you do well and do it efficiently. But it's like they've just kind of been all over the place. So
I think they're flailing. I mean, there's no reason that Lost Crown shouldn't have been a bigger success for them.
I know.
I don't think they know why.
Cool.
Right? Like I think at a fundamental level, I don't think management knows why it didn't work for them. I don't know that I could tell them. But you go from Lost Crown to Skull and Bones. You go for the rest of the year with X Defiant and Star Wars Outlaws. You push Shadows. It turns out to be a real risky year for them. But yes, in terms of their voice and their uniqueness, I like to just think of them as French. That's just what they believe they bring to the party. They are French. I like French games. I like French board games and card games. I'm playing a JRPG on that list that is French that I don't think I actually mentioned as part of the earlier list called Terra Memoria. That is maybe the most French video game I've ever played. But it is a wonderful little JRPG homage to like the Breath of Fire series. And it's also on sale right now. So
cool.
If it interests you to be a rhino mage, learning about the seasons and elements that help grow your hamburger farm, then check out
You've
Terra
been spying
Memoria.
on me again, Hoeg?
I know it. I was reading your diary, Ains.
Fair enough. Well, speaking of French games, there's one going to be shown at the Xbox Developer Direct coming later this month. Look at that segue.
The Direct is coming later this month, not the game we're about to talk about.
Not the game. Yes, very fair. See, I'm not a professional. That was a joke. So Xbox announced the next Developer Direct. I think most of us have agreed, at least the feedback I've seen, and we've talked on this show about liking this format, right? It's a good format. You get to see a handful of games. You get some good information on them, not too long, not too short. And so speaking of the French game, we're going to get to see Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Now, Hoeg may not be excited for this game, but I am at least. And Sandfall Interactive is bringing that to the Developer Direct along with first-party game South of Midnight, which we've obviously talked about extensively here with Travis doing the preview for IGN. And then one of my most anticipated games of the year as well, Doom: The Dark Ages, which according to Xbox Wires says we're going to get the full game reveal of The Dark Ages in this Developer Direct. So I think we got that awesome trailer last
that didn't
summer.
Count as a full game reveal?
I guess maybe they're not counting it, but I guess maybe show some new mechanics, some level design. I don't know. We'll see. So, but in addition to those three big games, which are already fantastic, they are also going to bring a fourth game, which they have not announced. It says in Xbox Wire they're going to visit a surprise studio for a new game that has not been formally announced, excuse me. So sound like a good time on this Developer Direct. 3 games at least I know I'm interested in, and pretty cool to see Expedition 33 show up there as well.
I'm sorry, Ains, was that sentence that there's 3 games you're interested in, one of which is a mystery game, and then it's nice that Expedition 33 is also there?
Yes, I'm interested. No. I'm interested in all 3 of those games. I don't know what the mystery game is, so I don't know if I'm interested in it yet.
Okay. Then it's weird to call out Expedition 33 as the second part of that sentence. That's fine.
I did that more as a segue to you. It just did it really poorly. Like I said, I'm not a professional here.
Hey, you're doing better than I could do in that chair. It's harder to run these things, folks. It is. So I appreciate Ains, your efforts. I appreciate everybody that always hosts the podcast that I'm on, because it is a lot to keep track of. But I'm excited about this. I like this format. I like the devs get to talk about their games more than in other formats. And so I'm super excited about this. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ains, but the last time Xbox had a mystery developer on one of these, and I don't think it was pre-announced, but they just kind of took the box that they used to highlight the developer and went off the screen, was Square Enix with Visions of Mana. Am I wrong on that? I seem to recall that was what they did with this kind of slot. So I don't think it has to be
familiar.
So I don't think it's a requirement on the Microsoft side that this be a first-party studio that is making an announcement. And that's one of the things that I'm most interested in. Are they going to share something that we're not expecting is coming to Xbox at all as part of this?
By the way, you are correct. It was Visions of Mana. Yes.
I remember my colorful Square Enix characters, where they show up.
I had to quickly look up their last developer direct. But
you want to talk about a company that seems to be all over the place, Square Enix. Ubisoft and Square Enix could go on a retreat together and talk about management. But this seems to be the strongest list that I have seen in one of these. I mean, Doom the Dark Ages is going to be awesome. Yeah. I liked the original Doom Revisit more than, and I always get this name wrong. Is it Immortal? It's Eternal, isn't it?
Eternal.
Yes. Yeah. Like I like the first one of this series more than Eternal. But I think Dark Ages is a cool concept that I'm interested in seeing. South of Midnight, every clip I see still looks clunky. We know that Travis talked about it potentially being clunky on an action basis, but I could not be more excited about what they've said about storytelling, fables, lore, and the inclusion of music in that whole process. So I am very pumped about that game. Expedition 33 was on my short list for the game that I'm most excited about when I was filling out that survey for Season Gaming. So Expedition 33 is going to be awesome. Like I said, I'm all in for the new FRPG genre of French RPG. So let's get this going. And whatever the surprise studio is that they kind of pre-announced here, it must be something significant, or at least that's the impression that they've given. So hopefully they didn't overpromise on this point, but I think that this looks to be a very strong direct to me.
Yeah, so just a couple things, Mekel, before I get your thoughts here. So Gamefire says some are thinking it's the Final Fantasy VII Remake Rebirth is a surprise. It is not. I know that because Xbox Wire from Joe Screbbles directly says it's a surprise location to see another studio's brand new game. So again, they're clarifying that this is a game that has not been shown before. So what that is, as Hoeg rightly pointed out, could be third party, first party, we're not sure, but it'll be a new game, whatever it is. Just to give you a little more detail here. So it says full game reveal on Doom the Dark Ages. And for those who may forget, this is cinematic origin story of Doom Slayer. So this is technically a prequel, right? This is going back. South of Midnight, there's going to be a deep dive on it, whatever that means in terms of deep dive as part of a show here. And then with Expedition 33, it says the team will share more about the game's creation and how they plan to deliver an incredible story in a gorgeous fantasy world. And fully relevant to this conversation today, the studio, Sandfall Interactive, are ex-Ubisoft developers. In fact, the guy who founded the studio thought of the idea for Expedition 33 while he was working on a game I'm going to forget, but one of the big Ubisoft games that's released in the past few years. So, there's multiple senior ex-Ubisoft developers at Sandfall Interactive working on this. So, Mekel, what do you think, man? Any of this? I don't know where you sit on these games or the interest level, but what do you think of Xbox Developer Direct format? And are these games high up on your anticipation list?
I think I'm gonna dig the format that they're going for. Doom the Dark Ages is definitely very high on my my radar. South of Midnight, I'm interested, but it looked very janky. Claire Obscure, Expedition 33, I'm excited for. But I think all the Final Fantasy YouTubers have kind of killed a lot of my excitement for it, because it's like they're gonna make a 10-minute video about one little detail, because Final Fantasy.
Don't let them ruin your hype.
I got to tell you, just to jump on that particular train, I didn't gel very well with Rebirth, but I've only kind of soured more on Rebirth with all of the commentary and videos and shipping of this particular game. And I do think that too much of that can sour your impressions on a piece of media. And I think Final Fantasy VII Rebirth might be the worst I've seen in the last year.
Yes. And it really comes down to the people milking it for the views and everything like that. Like when I did my review on it, I said, yeah, I like it, but I don't like it that much, especially when people are like, oh, it's the greatest game ever. It's the best thing ever. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, what have you played before? What is the barometer you're going with? So yeah, I got sick of it. But as far as the surprise studio visit and for a brand new game, I'm gonna assume that's gonna be StarCraft 3, and it's about time.
Whoa!
I'm
Why not? They're owned by Microsoft.
You know, because there's I know a lot of diehard StarCraft 2 people that's like, hey, we've been waiting a long time for a new game. Why not?
Well, I'm going to say it's a studio bringing us Half-Life 3. Why not? We'll go for it. No.
A studio. I don't know. Like Valve licensed it out.
How about Xbox stood up a new studio just to build new Banjo games?
All right. As a thought exercise, you know that they like to name their studios based on what they're doing. What do you call the Banjo-Kazooie stand-up studio? Because I would call it something like Gruntilda Inc.
I was literally about to say Gruntilda's Cauldron. So you and I, Hoeg, we got it. Yeah, it's got to involve Gruntilda, right? Or Mumbo Jumbo.
What if it's a remake of Brute Force?
Stop it.
Remember that?
Yes.
You mean the next Halo? Yes, I remember that very well.
One of the most oversold games of all time. Yes, I remember Brute Force.
People keep guessing that it's that it's some other game coming to Xbox. So just to reiterate, it says brand new game. So this is going to be a game none of us know, right?
You would think that language seems pretty specific.
It seems very specific. So I would assume that was put in there to let people know it's going to be something new, not just these other rumors of different games that are going to be coming to the ecosystem. So we will see. Maybe they just worded it poorly. Who knows? But this is January 23rd, so we won't be able to talk about it next week. It'll be the following Bitcast. But January 23rd at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, and 6 p.m. British Standard Time. So more to come on that soon. But I'm excited, man. Those are all games that I'm hyped for. So from what the, take it with a grain of salt, a bucket of salt. But what the, the people kind of in that Xbox community are saying that they're going to be surprised at the depth, the detail of the three games we've talked about, but kind of the big surprise. I guess some people already know what it is, obviously, and it's going to be a quote bigger than I think people are expecting. We will see. So, very good. All right. So, guys, this is going to be a short show for us, Hoeg. We don't usually go this short. We're disappointing our 3-hour fans.
I mean, we've got a lot of blame to assess to Travis on all fronts on this particular show.
But I think, I think we've covered the kind of biggest stuff of this week that we wanted to cover. So, Mekel, I will hand it to you. I want to give you a second to kind of talk about your channel and your shows. I was actually going through your stuff recently, and I have not caught up probably since fourth quarter. And saw that last month you got to sit down with Jennifer Hale, man. That is awesome. So I've put that in my watch list this morning, so I'll catch up on it. But please talk to our audience about your channel, about some of the things that you've done recently, and anything else you'd like to.
All right. So yeah, I have a YouTube channel called, it's just my name here, Mekel Kasanova. I like to review games, review tech. I've got 2 podcasts on the channel as well. The Kasanova podcast, still #1 podcast in Hawaii. People trying to take my throne, but no one else is doing the stuff I'm doing. I like to interview a lot of celebrities, voice actors, the game and tech industry, fellow content creators. Ains has been on the show previously. Hoeg, we got to get you on the show. And I'd like to, have it be an organic conversation, down to earth, very different than most stuff you'll find. Like Ains said, I recently got to sit down with Jennifer Hale, and it was a completely different conversation. A lot of people were shocked that it didn't go into talking about her career, but the things that she's actually interested in, which is, spirituality, philanthropy, and such. And it's just that's kind of the thing I go for with that show. Is I like to have it be an organic conversation and peel back that veil so people can get to know my guests. Other show that I have is Decked Up, a Gaming and Tech podcast, which I finally brought back after a near year hiatus. I like to go over, the tech that's coming out, the games that are coming out, give my predictions. I'm gonna have to have you guys on that one too. I definitely want to do more of a deep dive Xbox conversation because I feel like a lot of people do not understand what Xbox is doing. It's very clear and in your face, and people just aren't getting it. And I think there's a lot of that is the carryover from the anti-Xbox narrative that has been going on for a long time, and it's like, okay, this isn't 2010 anymore. People, move on. This is a new era for Xbox, and yeah, I definitely want to deep dive on that. But yeah, podcasts, game reviews. I might start throwing some fitness stuff in there. I know people say niche down, but I just like having fun with this.
You gotta do what you love.
Yeah, if you're not having fun, what's the point of it? Yeah, make money by niching down, but then you get the Final Fantasy YouTuber stuff I was talking about, which I don't know how you can talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth still to this day. Like, it's like
and it's more like whether Tifa puts her hand on Cloud's shoulder in that one scene. And it's like, you're killing me.
Yes.
That's good, man. So for anyone, it is Mekel's X account, and his channel are in the description, so you can scroll down and check that out. Please do. And we will obviously stay in touch, Mekel, as well, of course. Hoeg, what you got, my friend?
Yeah, well, I think folks that know me know that I have Virtual Legality on the channel, know that I do a show called Hangouts and Headlines where we analyze media stuff. And I had episodes of both go up on the channel this week, which is rare for me in the last couple of years, but I am trying to get off to 2025 to a good start. So if you're interested in the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni falderall, I talked about the New York Times article that gave rise to a multitude of lawsuits that we haven't gotten to yet on the channel for a couple of hours this past week. I think it's a really good video. I think we have a really good conversation about how that article's written and what a complaint to the California Civil Rights Department actually means and what it doesn't. And we're going to go in part 2 into the libel lawsuit, the various things that are happening around that particular kerfuffle even more. So if you're interested in that, check that out. And speaking to the fact that I don't niche down very well either, I also have a 25-minute video in Virtual Legality talking about Ubisoft, talking about the Assassin's Creed delay, talking about their strategic changes, and both how I read those statements and what it means for Ubisoft, much of what I've said in this Bitcast episode, but also why when IGN and GameSpot go and talk about investors grilling Ubisoft for more information, why they can't talk about it, the context of public markets, the context of SEC regulation, and exactly what's happening behind the scenes there where they say, look, we can't say anything until we're actually closer to the end point than right now. So I think that's a really good video. I'm really proud of doing that stuff for the channel. I'm also on a Last Stand Media video from the last week where I did a Dungeons and Dragons one-off campaign with a number of their contributors over there that you can check out. And I'm signed up for another year of contributions at Last Stand Media as well. So if you like that, be excited about it. If you don't like that, you can keep that to yourself. But I appreciate you watching me in any place that I appear. So thank you to everybody for all that support.
Fantastic. I just to echo that last sentiment. So, please, as we always say, hit the like, hit the comment, whatever you need to do to It really does help. And we've received some really nice comments. With starting the new year, I've shared them obviously with Hoeg and Travis around we've had a few saying they just discovered us. It was their, we had one person say, or two people say we were our favorite media discovery of 2024. And a lot of other people reaching out to say they're just finding us, which is really cool. So love to see that. It probably goes back to what I said about our audio listenership really going up, which is awesome. So definitely take that moment. There's a lot of creators out there. It's a very busy space. There's a lot of people, and I think it's a space where more and more people, it feels like anywhere, are spending their time, right, rather than what used to be called traditional media. There's a lot of streamers and content creators and all this other stuff you can consume, and we all have our favorites and our niches. Let those people know. It goes a very long way when you just even take a second to put a comment saying, hey, love your work, love your video, whatever it may be. It helps a lot, so thank you for that.
Very true. The algorithm that everybody talks about, like they understand it, and nobody really does. I don't even know if they understand it at YouTube. Really does like it when you tickle its buttons. Hit an upvote, hit a downvote, hit a comment, whatever it is that you feel like doing. You tickle Google's buttons, it responds.
I'm in for some Google tickling. Let's do it. Just a shout out to Luke, Joe, and I did get back together for Cast Co-op this week. It was the first time in 2.5 months. It's been a long time since we did a Cast Co-op. We talked mainly about what Mekel was talking about, which is Xbox's direction and kind of the mobile market, where Xbox may go with an operating system approach, right, and kind of being everywhere. So we tackled that. Well, I won't say we tackled it. We talked about it. And the show generally went completely off the rails. So if you want to watch a gaming podcast that is just all over the place, feel free to check that one out. But it was a good time getting up with the guys, and we'll try to get back to some consistency there as well. So otherwise, I hope you have a great week in gaming, getting caught up on those backlogs, playing anything you enjoy. Mekel, thank you as always, my friend. Always great catching up with you. And obviously, we will have you back in the future again sometime. We'll be in touch. Otherwise, everyone, enjoy your week, and we will catch you next Sunday. Till then.